was when I came home after a weekend bender, and my now ex-wife, but now best friend, she threw her ring at me and says, Tom, I will not marry a drunk. I'd never been called a drunk before, and it actually hurt my feelings, and I haven't had a drop since.
Be Inspired podcast. Real stories from real people. Sharing stories of love and loss, struggles and perseverance, laughter and tears, and overcoming adversity.
One of life's best teachers can sometimes be the mistakes that we make in our own lives. And coming up today on Be Inspired, we're going to meet a gentleman who fell prey to the evils of alcohol addiction as a young man and now helps those who are struggling with their own addictions. Hi, I'm Bert Barron.
And I'm Lisa Anderson.
And we welcome you in to Be Inspired. Lisa, the mistakes that I have made in life have really been one of the great teachers of mine.
I can't count on both hands.
You're on both hands already.
Yeah, as
Okay.
well. Don't forget, we grew up in the 80s.
This is true.
Yeah,
this is true. Our guest today is very active when it comes to lecturing young people about the evils of alcohol and underage drinking and driving. And it's great to welcome Tom McKnight to Be Inspired. Tom, welcome to the program. Great to have you here today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Grow up in a home of family and church and togetherness, and that was your upbringing a little south of here, right?
It was. I was church every Sunday, loving, my mother had MS, so she was completely bedridden, so she couldn't really get out and do a whole lot with me. My father traveled a lot, but that didn't matter because the love was still there. My mom would have me up at 5 o'clock Christmas morning that Santa Claus came, and I'm like, Mom, please, 5 more minutes. Santa can wait. And then right the age of when you're starting to really count on your friends and who your friends are going to be at the age of 12 is when I would say I met, how can I put this? Friends that weren't friends.
Right.
They took me down, well, I took myself down, but they introduced me to a very lonely, dark, bumpy road at the age of 12. Is when I took my first drink of alcohol.
Were they older than you, Tom?
Just by a couple years, not much. The fellow that I first went over, skipped school and went to his house, he is no longer with us now. He's gone beyond by his own doing, just couldn't take it anymore. Alcohol to me was the liquid courage. Drink a couple beers, I liked the way it felt. I liked the way it puffed me up. I could talk to people better. I could dance better. I could ask that girl out better. But then the second time I drank, it took me one more to get to where I was the very first time. That's why it's sometimes called chasing the dragon. That's why people are very easily to get addicted, because they're chasing that dragon. They're chasing that very first high, and you'll never reach it, ever. And that's what people are constantly after. And it just progressed into that. And when I was 16 years old, I was I hate to say it, a full-blown alcohol-dependent alcoholic at the age of 16.
Do you think, looking back, you were predisposed genetically? Because a lot of kids take drinks when they're in their young teens. I know, my friends and I, when we were early on in high school, would go to the woods and we'd have our 6-pack of beer, and as time went on, you'd party a little, but it never got, for me anyway, to the point where we chased the dragon, as you put it.
The only reason I chased it, I guess, like I said, is I like the way it made me feel, because I'm not a very big person. So when I was in school, I was smaller than everybody else. I tried to play football, and I realized, well, no. I mean, these people are trying to tackle me, weigh as much as a bus. And no, so that hurt. So then I tried track, and that didn't work. I just never, quote unquote, fit in to that crowd.
Right.
So I took the alternate route, which ultimately led me down to a road of hell.
And what troubles me sometimes, Tom, is people make the mistake of thinking that a dependency like you had and continue to battle today, it's victimless. But the fact that you were caught drinking and driving multiple times, just think about, you could have an innocent person injured, maybe even killed as a result of this addiction. That's something that you think about every day, right?
Every day. Every day. I've had 4 DUIs. Only one over the age of 21. Wow. Now I carry something in my pocket that I am more proud to carry than a picture of my 2 girls, and that is this.
Is that a sober coin?
That's the medallion for AA.
Great.
And you get one of these every year that you're sober. And this right here has a number 29 on it. October 13th of this year, I'll celebrate my 30th year of sobriety. That was one of the hardest steps I've ever had to make. Was when I came home after a weekend bender and my now ex-wife, but now best friend, she threw her ring at me and says, "Tom, I will not marry a drunk." I'd never been called a drunk before, and it actually hurt my feelings. And I haven't had a drop since.
Wow.
And the 4 DUIs and the one I got was fairly local to here, well, to Maryland, when I'm, where I reside. I sat through a traffic light. I pulled up to a red light and did what you're supposed to do. Well, that light turned green, and I was still sitting there, and still sitting there. I don't know what I was waiting on, because as far as I'm concerned, they only turn one shade of green. And it turned red again. Well, lo and behold, guess who was sitting right behind me? A police officer. So he knocked on my door. Long story short, I did get arrested that night. Now, if you know anything about alcohol, the legal limit is a .08. That is 4 beers for most people. Each beer, glass of wine, or shot is a .02. 2 hours had gone past when they gave me the intoximeter at the police station. I blew a .25.
Wow.
So at the time of my arrest, I roughly had 15 beers in my system when I sat through that green light.
Which arrest was this?
That was my 4th.
The 4th. And you lose your license, I think, for 10 years? 20?
I didn't lose it at all. 30 years ago, they weren't near as strict as they are today. And that's why I joined forces with MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. I joined forces with them in 2007. Just to hope and pray that when I give my presentations to high schools, colleges, conferences, what have you, at least one person, I hope just one, will hear my story and decide not to do what I did, because I've been there and done that.
What kind of plans did you have for your future, Tom, that were obviously derailed by this addiction that you had?
At the time of that, I worked at a hospital, and I had been in that hospital for a number of years, and I started to get in good with several of the doctors. You know, when I first started, I started in the operating room, then I went to the recovery room, and then I went to where I thought I could do the most good, was the emergency department. And I got in good with an orthopedic surgeon. And he said, "Tom, you need to go to nursing school." And I was like, Dr. C, that's what I called him. That's just not in my plans. It's not in, I just can't afford it. So, I don't know, maybe a week went past. Here he came. "Tom, I think you seriously need to go to nursing school." And handed me a blank check.
Wow.
"I will pay for all of it. Every bit of it. I'll even give you money every month just to go out by yourself or with a date or what have you, just to forget about school." Think I took that offer? No. I went out to celebrate that night, and then I came into work the next day, and it was around the holidays. Went to the recovery room. They were having their Christmas party. I had a couple glasses of punch. My pager went off. Next thing I know, I'm down in the emergency department performing CPR on some lady, hoping and praying that she's going to live. Well, she lived. Then the supervisor came up to me and said, "Tom, where were you before you came down here to the emergency department. Well, I was in the recovery room. Well, what'd you do? Well, they were having their Christmas party. Okay. They had punch and little cocktail weenies. And how many glasses of punch did you have? I was like, a couple. So you did have some punch. You, in fact, had some of that punch. I'm like, yes. And she looked at me with a tear rolling down her cheek and said, Tom, you're fired. Frank is going to escort you out of the building right now. I was devastated. Why do you think I got fired? What was in that punch that would have gotten me fired?
Alcohol.
There was alcohol in that punch. Why did I drink the punch? Because I put the alcohol in it. Because that was my way of thinking at that time of my life, that if it's a party, it's got to have drugs and or alcohol there. If it's not, if you're not going to have drugs and alcohol, then it's not a party. It's just a get-together.
You know, listening to that and knowing today what we know about drugs and alcohol, a lot of focus is on the drugs. But I don't think, and my mom actually pointed this out to me. She said, you know, she grew up with a father who was an alcoholic. And she said, alcohol has ruined more lives than people realize. And we really don't put as much focus as, you know, alcohol is always associated with parties and barbecues and, like you said, company parties. And it
Crab
seems,
feast.
right, less harmful than the drugs. It seems that way, but it's far from it.
Far, far, far from it. I mean, there's some, well, let's just say alcohol leads to nearly half of the deadly crashes on the July 4th weekend. And you, being with MAD, you'll never hear anybody that's with MAD say, well, John was in a car accident. It is not an accident. We call them crashes because that's what they are. An accident is when you get up and kick your cat in the middle of the night when you get up to go to the bathroom. Driving under the influence, impaired on anything, drugs, alcohol, cell phones, it's 100% preventable. It's a fact. Don't do it. But like myself, oh, I could do it. The average person will drink roughly 80 times before they're pulled over for drunk driving first time.
Wow.
Tom, it seems like with people who are dealing with addiction and those in their lives around them, whether it's friends or family members, they either go one of two paths. It's either complete alienation where they kind of give up on you, and there's another component of people that almost kind of enable you. Well, Tom is he can't pay his rent because he's spending all his money. Here's the money for the rent. And then it kind of creates this machine and this cycle that's very difficult to get out of. You've probably experienced both of those from other people in your life, right?
I did. My parents, for one, they would give me money, especially my mother. She always had an excuse for me. Oh, well, he just had a hard day at work. Oh, Joe, leave him alone. He just, you know, she always made it. And then I had those friends that I would knock on their door. They were having a big cookout, pool party, what have you. Tom, we don't want you here. We love you, but we do not want you here. Why not? Because you take everybody's girlfriend, or you try, and then you drink all our alcohol. And you pass out under a kitchen table or something. No, we just can't do it anymore, Tom. We can't. So instead of taking that as a, hey, maybe there is something to this, me having a problem. Nah, screw you. I don't need you. So took off in a different direction.
We'll come back in just a moment and spend some more time with Tom McKnight. We'll talk about his role now as a lecturer and how he speaks with young people about the evils of dangers of drinking and driving when we resume on Be Inspired.
Moving is difficult. At Lowe's, it doesn't have to be. For all of your residential and commercial moving needs, contact 732-775-4118 or get a free FaceTime estimate. Lowe's, proudly serving New Jersey for over 96 years. IgA Nephropathy Foundation of America is a patient-centric organization dedicated to finding a cure and better treatment options for IgA kidney disease. If you or someone you know was recently diagnosed or to donate, please visit IGAN.org. In this new day and age of online meetings and presentations, you need the best team at the ready. Whether broadcasting your Zoom meetings to Facebook Live or live streaming a fundraiser event, SIRREEL Streaming Services, with over 10 years of experience, can add confidence to your next live stream event. Call or text 646-498-8888 or visit sir-reel.com. Feeling stuck with your health goals? Michelle Weber Integrated Fitness and Lifestyle Design specializes in integrating simple daily routines to get you moving towards strengthening your core and boosting immunity and resiliency. With over 15 years experience, let Michelle's team help you reach your fitness and lifestyle goals by visiting michelleweber.com or on Facebook at Michelle Weber Lifestyle.
Tom, I know you make many appearances for MAD, and your dedication to MAD has been incredible. So now when you make your appearances, I want you to go and give out some ties to each one. They'll all be signed from you. Tie one on for MAD. Enjoy from you, Tom. So every time you go again, you'll have a little bit of our team, the Be Inspired team, a lot of MAD, and continue doing the great work you do.
Thank you so very much.
Okay, enjoy
Thank you
this
so very
day.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our guest this time around on Be Inspired is Tom McKnight. He's a public speaker on the dangers of drunk driving, underage drinking, and impaired driving. Before we wrap up today, we're going to give some information where you could perhaps invite Tom to come to your organization and lecture and speak to people about the dangers and evils of drunk driving. Closing in on 30 years of sobriety, Tom, and congratulations to you.
Thank you.
But
Thank
you
you.
are literally, for someone who had addiction and struggles with addiction, recovery is every day for the rest of your life. Is that correct?
It is. It is. I saw a friend of mine sent me this little statement. It said, alcohol or sobriety is not owned, it's rented, and rent is due every day. Even though I've got almost 30 years, I technically only have 24 hours because yesterday I've completed. Tomorrow is promised to no one, so it's today. And then tomorrow morning I'll get up, thank you, and I'll go another 24 hours. So it's a struggle. And when I speak, I'm hoping somebody will hear that.
One day at a time.
One day at a time. That's all we can do, you know?
Tom, what was your marriage like? You say now your now ex-wife, who's now your best friend. What was that like?
Oh, it was not good.
Yeah.
It's not, but I don't remember most of it. And at first it was fun because she was going out drinking with me and we would go to clubs and drink this and that and whatever. And then after time, she knew that there was a serious problem going on here. But she could never reason with me because you cannot reason with a drunk. You can't do it. We're always right. F you. If we're not, we can't. So that's when she had just had enough. And she was like, I'm done. I am so done with you. So, like I said, now we're the best of friends. Got two beautiful girls out of it. So.
Do you lean on her on occasion for support? Because everyone who's in recovery, you have these moments of weakness. It's just kind of the way that this disease works.
Yeah.
You know you can count on her to kind of get you through some
Absolutely. And
some
I've got
tough times.
several other friends too that if it's, you know, like I tell everybody that calls me and says, you know, well, how do I help my son or how do I do this? You can't help them if they do not want help themselves.
Right.
You just can't.
No.
And there, even though it's been almost 30, 24 hours, you know, I get those urges. Right when the seasons change, right when I start smelling the fresh cut grass, I want bad. You know, I want to go sit on a deck with my feet propped up and just drink.
Yeah.
And I know I can't. One. You know, an alcoholic's phrase is 1 is too many and 100's not enough. So I just, you know, so that's why I joined forces with MAD. I do my speaking to hopefully, like I said before, that they get just one.
Who goes to MAD meetings, Tom?
They're called VIPs. They're called Victim Impact Panels, and they're all over Maryland. They're all over a lot of different states, but there are people that have been arrested and they're court ordered to go to a victim impact panel and hear people speak on how drunk driving has affected them. Deb comes and talks about her daughter, Janet. And like I said earlier, Jennifer, a very dear friend of mine, lost her fiance and her 4-year-old daughter. Me, I was one of the fortunate ones. I never hurt anybody physically. Emotionally, I trashed them, you know. So, and they're an hour long, and they hear like me. And when I speak, I put a lot of humor into the beginning of it, and then that's when I completely shift gears and start talking about my very, very dear friend of mine that was killed by a drunk driver.
Tom, it's great that you continue to have such a strong voice for this addiction. I don't know if it gets as much attention as it used to, because now you think about teenagers and addiction, it's more opioids and heroin sort of driven, but underage drinking and driving is still just as big a problem as it always been, but maybe just not getting the attention that it used to get?
It does, but people are just like, I mean, we have been to hearings in Annapolis to try and get them to pass the laws that ignition interlocks are put into every car on their very first offense, and that has saved countless lives. And now there's a program that Matt has, it's called the Power of Youth, and there's two parts to it. There's a part that we give the actual youth, and then there's the part we give to the parents or the caregivers or whatever, so that they can get them started on the conversations. Because a lot of parents, a lot of people don't know how to start that conversation.
Right.
You know, oh, no, it'll never happen to me. Oh, no, I don't need to worry about that. And it does. I mean,
It can and it does. The laws have gotten a lot stricter, though, over the years.
oh, they
I
have.
mean,
They definitely have.
yeah, I mean, it's, what is it, 0.2 now?
That's
In
still a
Georgia?
0.08.
0.08, okay. But the laws, the fines, the loss of license,
If you refuse to take the you know, some of us call them the stupid human tricks on the side of the road, you know, where you got to touch your nose and walk a straight line. If you refuse any testing, then that's an automatic license loss,
Yeah.
period. Because it states right on the back of your license, you are subject to, and you will. So, but yeah, the laws are getting pretty strict, and they're getting stricter every day.
In your travels, Tom, and you've talked to so many people, and if you could save one life, obviously it's worth it for you. But talk about an event that involved, was it at a mall that involved a giveaway of some neckties or something? What was that about?
It was. We were there with Erwin Sternberg and the cocktail ties that we kicked off with MAD. And the slogan for that was, let this be the only way you tie one on.
catchy.
It is catchy,
Yeah.
isn't it? And then there was a group of us there. And it was awesome, too, because it was right before prom. So moms and the sons were all coming out, you know, and they were like, oh, let's look. And I was like, no, come here. And explain what that tie was, because each tie has its own little molecular structure, I guess, of what that particular alcohol looks like under a microscope, zoomed in like a bazillion times. And it's pretty neat. Well, we would sign the ties, they would buy one, and off we went. And that particular kickoff there raised about $2 million for MAD. Yeah, it was, yeah.
You mentioned your best friend. Tell us about him, Tom.
John,
Yeah.
I lost my father, and I lost my father-in-law at the time in April of 2008. That was a part of life because they were elderly. My father-in-law had cancer. I'm glad he's gone, so now he's not suffering anymore. My father died suddenly, and that was very hard for everybody because he was so active. But then I received a phone call in 2008, and as soon as I answered the phone, the first words out of their mouth was like, Tom, are you sitting down? Well, being a parent, the first thing I thought of were my kids.
Sure.
Well, I turned around, and Taylor was coloring, and my tomboy Caitlin was climbing a tree somewhere or something. And I was like, no, I'm not. Why? He said, well, you might want to sit down. He proceeded to tell me that there was a bar, a local bar, and there had been a man there that had been drinking a lot, and they did what they were supposed to do. They took him home. I commend them for that.
Sure.
But then after he got home, he decided he needed some cigarettes. Here it comes. So he gets in a pickup truck that has a flat tire, and he comes out the wrong way on this road. And he comes out 404, which is a major road through Maryland, and makes another turn going the wrong way and finds my dear friend John and hit him right in the driver's door and killed him instantly. I was done. I've never cried so much in my life. Oh, goodness.
So sorry.
John was 39 years old, and he had a beautiful wife and 6 beautiful children.
Oh, gosh.
And I still talk to them today. I love talking to Amanda because she talks funny, because she's from England. The man that killed John was sentenced. He was found guilty, sentenced to 10 years. 5 of it was suspended, and he spent a short 2.5 years in prison for killing John.
That's a slap on the wrist.
It is, as far as we're concerned, because, yeah, he might be on parole or he might not be able to do this. The Hill family, they have to live with this forever. I called Amanda last summer and asked if I could come and visit and if she could have all the kids there. So she asked the kids, and they all came. I pulled up in their driveway, and just to walk 10 yards felt like 40 miles. It was because I knew what was coming. I walked in. As soon as I walked in, here come the daughters hugging me, and I'm like, don't do it. Don't cry, Tom. Don't go. Well, that didn't work. And I asked them if they would write something down about that night. And they did. And it took me about 2 weeks to read those, because I'd read one and I couldn't do it anymore. I've got some now, if you'd like to hear one. I don't know if I can read it, but if you would like to read it, I'll let you.
Sure.
It was rough.
You hear these stories, Bert. So many families,
Yeah.
like John, that were destroyed because of this. That it's so important that you spread this
one,
message.
it says right at the top, she was 4 years old, and this girl was 12 at the time.
And this is what she wrote about her dad.
Yes. Those 2 of the daughters.
Okay, this is from 2019. And Bert, you want to read one as well? I'll start off with, I remember driving to my friend's house with my dad, listening to music with him and singing. He dropped me off at my friend's house and kissed me goodbye. I didn't know it was the last time I said I love you. And he got in the car and he drove off. At midnight, my friend's mom woke me up and said, someone's here to see you. I walked into the living room and was surprised to see police officers. They quickly but gently told me my dad had been in an accident and he didn't make it. I can't express the disbelief and denial I felt. When it finally hit me the next day, I felt a piece of me was missing. That's the best way I can explain it. And she was 12 years old.
This is from Annabeth, who was 4 at the time. I don't remember anything from the day my father passed away. I really don't remember my father. I only remember him from photos and memories my family tells me. It's so sad. Does this family keep you going, Tom? Does this family
Yes.
help to kind of keep you on that path?
Yes, and not one of the family has ever heard me speak. Now they want to. Now you tell me how hard that's going to be to get that story out with the family sitting there.
That's okay.
I'm not
Because
bringing tissues, I'm bringing a bed sheet.
yeah.
It's awful. I mean, and this is what happens every single day, every day, every 2 minutes.
It's hard to believe. With the stricter laws, and I mean, I know prom season, Bert, you know, with the kids they get limos, thankfully now, which helps save so many lives, because it is prom night, they're going to party, and thank God they get the limos and the drivers, but still,
There's a lot of
every
them,
2
but they go to the
seconds.
parties.
Yeah.
And the hosting laws are getting extremely strict. Parents are like, oh, well, I'd rather them drink here. At least I know where they're at.
Yeah.
You know, I took everybody's keys. Well, one lady thought she did, and guess whose keys she didn't hide? Her own. So somebody found them, got in a car, and about 1.5 miles up the road, they swerved over and they hit somebody, and they killed them. So every day, it happens every day. That's why I hope and pray when I speak to the victim impact panels with MAD, whether it's the power of youth, it's our teenagers, it's our, and I hate to say it like that, but it's our youth. They're our future. So if they continue doing this, and they all don't, but there are a lot of them, they're our future.
No question. Tom, as we wrap up, if someone is interested in having you come out and speak to a group of young people, what's the best way to contact you and arrange for that?
Well, they can contact me on my cell phone. They can text me at 443-239-6401. Or my email is T as in Tom, P as in Paul, McKnight, McKnight, 2794 at gmail.com.
Well, Tom McKnight, we thank you for joining us today on Be Inspired. I congratulate you on the last 29 plus years, but even more congratulations on yesterday. Fingers crossed for you today, and I'm praying for you tomorrow, okay?
Thank you very much.
And thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm Bert Barron.
And I'm Lisa Anderson.
Thank you for joining us on Be Inspired.
Hi, my name's Tom McKnight, and I just want to encourage everybody to think before they drink. I came on Let's Be Inspired to hope and pray that somebody out there hears this and just don't travel down the road that I did. Alcohol's a mean road to travel down. Please, just don't. Just say no.
Next on Be Inspired.
This book, Collared, is a suspense novel set in the sex abuse scandals of the church. And I used a fictional device to really understand how I felt about my own faith, and then also processing the fact that it happened to me. I took the first copy of this book to the gentleman that I had that inappropriate relationship with, and I put that on his table in front of him. I said, I'm not cool with what happened. Actors saw things in those funny stories about growing up Irish and Catholic and guilty where they said, hey, there's a good play there. That's a real sweet story. It all starts with 138 words a day times 365 days. You'd never know where this is gonna end up.
Be Inspired with your hosts Bert Barron and Lisa Anderson Puleo. Directed by Rod Weber. Created and produced by Michael R. Doyle. Co-producers Bert Barron, Lisa Anderson Puleo, and Erwin Sternberg. Executive producers Rod Weber and Sean M. Sternberg. Editor Rebecca Gruber. Social media team Rebecca Gruber, John Franklin, and Luke Lograno. Filmed at New Beginnings Foundation, Wall Township, New Jersey. And thanks to our sponsors, Loewy's Moving Service, IgA Nephropathy Foundation of America, Michelle Weber Wellness, and SIRREEL Stream Services. Season 4 of Be Inspired is dedicated to the memory of Rob Izbicki, a guest of Season 2, who lost his life to cancer, and to his service to the community as a firefighter. Rob was a proud husband and loving father who cared deeply for his family and friends. Our prayers are with Rob's family during this time.